think many of the ideas initially came from my own experience, and but then I shared it with hundreds of people as HR practitioner, and came a moment when I had time. It was between two jobs, and I remember that moment when I decided, why not start it now this morning at the breakfast table to write it down, and then it was a flow, 3 months of that writing experience, great experience, much harder after the editing and the publishing, but that's how it actually came together. A couple of the key principles are very basic, and the most basic one, but the starting point is it is worthwhile investing a little bit of time to think about your professional development. It sounds super basic, and you would think, yes, of course. I mean, this is an important part of our life. Everyone is spending time to think strategically about it. It can't be any different. This is not the case. So many people stumble from one opportunity to the other, and for some reason don't take that time to think about it. They spend hours to define the company strategy or the product strategy that they are in charge of, and not even 1 minute very often. So I think that's the first point. It is important to think ahead. That's just as important, and even more for yourself as it is, for any business you support. And I think the second principle is we need to drive this thing. I mean, if a CEO would say, well, I wait for opportunities to come along for my company, I just, watch out, then you would say, well, you aren't doing a great job. And I think we are the CEO of our career enterprise, of our, and we have that responsibility to drive things, to be active. Yes, opportunities do come along, but we first of all need to select between those opportunities. But it is also important to give an impulse and to give direction. And the third key principle is it is important that our professional life is connected to our deep desire, to what we truly aspire to, because this is how you can get true satisfaction and fulfillment. But that is very often not what people do. I was in that same situation. You are a bit influenced by your social environment, by the studies you maybe have done because that is what your parents had recommended, and then you are in a pathway that is maybe not truly yours. And I must say, as head of HR, I see so many people who at a late stage of their career, after 10, 20 years, come to the conclusion, I can't continue. This is simply not something that is giving me that satisfaction. And so I believe that as third principle, make sure, if possible early on, that you understand what is that deeper desire, and to be able to connect your professional development to it. There are so many, Claire, stories. Some of the stories are, we spoke about vineyards a little bit earlier before we started the podcast. And this is, as a matter of fact, a friend of mine, long time ago. He was a super successful engineer, went into finance in France, made some great career start, a bit the shining star. And one day he hit the wall and he didn't get the job that he was expecting. And then everything broke down, the car house broke down. And why did it break down so easily? Because it was built on sand. I mean, this entire thing he had done to please his parents. They had sent him to HEC, this business school in France. They had sacrificed, financially speaking. So he was just a super bright guy and very mathematically oriented. And he had that great, easy start in finance. But then just one stumbling stone was enough, and the car house broke. And that's when I interacted with him also more intensely. And when he understood that in reality, really what he wanted was to look after the farm. I mean, the vineyards from his family. That was the only thing that he really aspired to. All the rest he did for extrinsically motivated reasons. And so, I mean, there is a happy end because, he had the discussions with his family that he never had before to say, look, and everyone was super happy to bring him on board. And now he is running the chateau. And so, I mean, that was for me so eye-opening, to think how interesting. He was running in a direction that was not connected. So that is just one story, Claire. But I have now lots of these stories.